You just came back from a trip to the border. You saw how migrants were there, how they were treated. Are you concerned?
I'm deeply concerned. We have an absolute crisis at the border, and congressional Democrats are blocking any meaningful solutions. In the month of May, we apprehended over 144,000 people coming across the border illegally. It is swamping communities on the border. I'm hearing from elected officials, from mayors, from sheriffs. I'm hearing from police chiefs, many of them Democrats, but who are saying that they simply cannot handle this volume. 144,000 in the month of May. If it continued on that pace for a year, that would be nearly 2 million people coming over illegally. That exceeds the capacity of law enforcement, of health care, of basic public infrastructure. And the reason that we're having is, and a great many of those coming are children, are family units, is because congressional Democrats have put loopholes into the law that encourage people to come because they mandate what's called catch and release, which is when people are apprehended, they're released, they're given a court date in the future, and they let go, and many of them never come back.
People see these images. They're hard to watch.
Yeah.
While you say it's what the Democrats are doing, isn't everybody to some degree at fault that this is still a problem?
No, because the Democrats are blocking any solution. I can tell you, I've been fighting for 7 years to fix this problem. I'll give you an amazing statistic I learned in the Rio Grande Valley. Rio Grande Valley sector is the #1 sector for illegal crossings in the country today. In 2014, just 5 years ago, the adult single males that were crossing into this country, roughly 2% of them had kids with them. Today, do you know what that number is? It's 50%. Roughly 50% of adult single males coming across have children with them. Now, why is that? It's Congress's fault. Because of the loopholes we have in place, if you're a drug trafficker, if you're a gang member, if you're an adult single man and you bring a child with you, that child is effectively a get-out-of-jail-free card. What that is incentivizing is more and more kids being abused. The Rio Grande Valley sector did a pilot program of rapid DNA testing for units that presented as family units, that said they were families. Nearly 30% of those tested were found not to be families. That means the adults were with a child that was not related to them. That is sick, and it's Congress's fault. We're hearing more and more reports of children being rented, being sold, because Congress has said, grab a little boy, grab a little girl, and if you have a child with you, you get released. Anyone who cares about being compassionate, who cares about kids, should close these loopholes so that you don't have children in the custody of human traffickers and drug traffickers that are abusing far too many of these kids.
In the meantime, though, what should be done for these kids?
What should be done for these kids is what we are doing, which is caring for them. You can't release a young child just out onto the street. But what should be done fundamentally is we shouldn't have the loopholes in place that put them in the custody of human traffickers, that encourage them to come illegally. They didn't used to be coming illegally. What changed initially was President Obama's DACA, his amnesty targeted at those who came as kids. That's what caused unaccompanied children to spike. It's why President Obama built the cages to begin with, is we went from a few thousand children to 90,000 children. That was the direct consequences of President Obama's policy. And now, as a result of the congressional loopholes, and then there's a court decision called Flores. And Flores has been interpreted to mean that any child has to be released within 20 days. That, in turn, has been used for adults to say, hey, if I grab me a kid, if I bring a kid with me, I have to be released too. Now, that is a stupid incentive. Why should we want to incentivize people making an incredibly dangerous and incredibly difficult illegal journey in the custody of human traffickers? Why should we want to put little boys and little girls in those conditions? We shouldn't, and we need to end it. That's the compassionate thing to do.